Okay, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you. Um, I wanted to start with a couple of quick announcements. So, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, that Erin is not going to be here today to share an update on with the broadband office. She is in Tucson today for a big STEM conference, so she will not be here. And I think we have a couple of new people who have joined us this morning. So I want to introduce them. Andy Tobin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I've had a bit of a history in this process, as you well know, from the
More than a bit, more than a bit.
security side. Yeah, but very grateful and very thankful for the group online here today. A very distinguished group, and it's been my pleasure to be in a position where I can continue to be of assist to the state of Arizona. So, thank you for organizing and putting this together.
So Andy, you want to just do a quickie background about your long history with the state of Arizona?
Thank you for that. I got to play a role as Speaker of the House, and I'm glad I'm not the Speaker of the House today, so I can share that. As you know, I'm a rural guy, and it gives me a lot of a pleasure to be continuing to operate and help in the rural communities to help broaden this digital access, which is very important to us for our economy and continue to grow. I spend time in the Corporation Commission, where we downloaded a lot of money from the federal government for E-rate, and got that part of this show going, and also created with the help of many at the Governor Ducey's office when I was head of the Department of Administration, to build on our security task force, which later got moved over to the Department of Homeland. So very grateful to have played a small role in a lot of those events. So thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks, Andy, for joining us today.
Hey, Steve, this
I'm
is
sorry.
Karen.
Yeah,
Steve,
Carrie.
this is Karen. He is just being way too humble. I worked under Director Tobin at the Department of Administration, and under his leadership was how we developed the Rural Broadband Initiative and created the state strategic plan in 2018. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there.
Good.
Thank you, Karen. I'll put in a call for a raise if that's all right.
Okay. And Alexis, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Alexis Sustar?
Hey, yeah, Alexis Sustorf. I've been on this group, and it's been a while. I own a firm, State 48 Public Affairs, and in this capacity, I'm here on behalf of Fortinet Cybersecurity. Thanks for having me. It's been a while, a couple months now.
Okay, well, thank you. I have a good memory. It's just a little bit short. That's what I have to tell people all the time these days. And we had a couple of other people who were new today. Ryan, Alexis, Heather, Kelly, Louie. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and keep rolling here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So little change of agenda today. I just got a note last night that the folks from T-Mobile will not be here this morning, but I do have some information to share, and they're planning to be here next week. So just wanted to share that with you. And so I don't think we have anybody from the broadband office here this morning. But just a couple of quick updates from them. Excuse me. So the broadband office will be hosting a June BEAD roundtables. They have, excuse me, local government on Monday, June the 10th. And by the way, again, a reminder that all these dates and links are all in my email that I sent out. So if you're trying to scribble this all down, don't worry about it. It's all there for you. But local government is on June the 10th. Internet service providers also on June the 10th at 2 o'clock. Local government is at 11 o'clock. And then tribal communities is on June the 11th at 2 o'clock. And then on June the 18th, from 3 to 4 p.m., they're hosting a digital equity plan community roundtable webinar. And Aaron, excuse me, I'll make sure I get you some information, but you were asking about the timetable, and that'll be a good event if you can attend. That'll give you kind of an overview of the timing and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so next thing is that the subgrantee application process, and Aaron, again, this relates to the question you asked. So the subgrantee application process is in the process of being developed. And excuse me. And if you are thinking that you might want to be a subgrantee, there is a link, and I've also is in my email, that you can go to their website and indicate that you might be interested in being a subgrantee. If you fill out that form, it doesn't mean you're not committing that you will do something, but they want to get some sense of who is going to be interested in applying for some of those digital equity funding. So again, I encourage you to do that if you're thinking about it. And again, it's not, if you put information in there, it doesn't mean that you're therefore committed to doing that, but they want to get some sense of what's happening. Okay, so moving on, this morning, NTIA is, Nicole's not here, I don't believe. And Brenna, you're not here this morning either, are you? Brenna and Judy? I don't think they either.
She's not, but I can give a report today, Steve, if you want.
Sounds good. So you want to do that, Elena?
Sure. So it's a brief report, but an important one. The Senate Commerce Committee Chair, Maria Cantwell, announced that there would be a markup on Wednesday of next week for a revised version of her spectrum bill. It's 4207, the Spectrum and National Security Act. So some of those features, and I can put this in the chat, is it would restore the FCC Spectrum Auction Authority, provide $7 billion to continue the ACP program. It would provide an additional $3 billion for the rip and replace of foreign equipment in rural telco networks. And it would make some spectrum available for shared and unlicensed use. So the problem is the bill is 119 pages long, which, if anybody's read the Lujan bill, was only 11 pages. So even if the Cantwell bill passes through the committee next week, chances of final passage on the Senate floor and the House are probably slim. The other problem is that this bill has been pulled twice when it's been slated for markup. So that's kind of what's happening right now. Of news. Yeah. Oh, the other piece of good news is that just this morning, which is why I was a little late to this meeting, the FCC adopted with a 3-2 vote from the commission on the E-rate cyber program for schools and libraries. So we talked about that last week, I believe, and today was the open commission hearing. So,
and we are going to have Mala, of course, isn't here today. She's also at that STEM conference, but she certainly has been following that and had planned to do a discussion on that program. So we'll probably do that in the next week or two. Elena, if I understand correctly, I saw that notice today about Cantwell's bill. If I understood it correctly, they're saying that it will allow the FCC to borrow money from the Treasury to fund the ACP, and that the FCC would repay the loan from revenue generated by future spectrum auctions.
Correct.
So kind of interesting. Very interesting.
Talk about
Okay.
last ditch effort.
Yeah. Well, at least people are still trying to figure out how to make it happen, which is better than having given up
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah. And yeah, in that note from John, from Shelby this morning, he did point out kind of an interesting factoid, I guess, and that's that the markup agenda didn't include that cruise bill, the Kids on Board Act for schools. And Shelby is saying that this is a victory because obviously they worked very hard to oppose that bill, because that bill was putting more restrictions on E-rate. And so that's a good thing. So if it does actually see the light of day and markup on Wednesday, there's going to be a ton of changes. And the key is to obviously not water down the bill to the point where, you know, where it doesn't provide what's needed. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, the bill was pulled twice from markup before. So who knows?
Who knows with Congress these days, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Thanks for that update. Dan Gosen,
Sure.
are you online? Yeah, I see you're online. Can you introduce yourself quickly? Dan Gosian, are you there? Is that your proper pronunciation of your name? Okay. All right.
Hey, he's with Fortinet as well, Steve, just FYI. He's
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't seen you guys a lot lately, so it's good to have you back.
Yeah,
wonder
thanks for
what brought
having
you
us. Yeah,
today.
been busy.
I wonder what brought you out today.
Saw a good agenda item.
Okay. So with one more announcement, and then we're going to get into our presentation from Jerry this morning. So actually two announcements quickly. June 26th, and you've heard this before, and it's in my email, that there's going to be a workforce outreach summit here in Southern Arizona. The talent pipeline from 9 to 1:30 at the Fred Acosta Job Corps. That meeting is open to anybody who is interested, and I have put into the email the contact information with Von Croft if you are interested and want more information and want to register. So that's the first thing. Next thing is got a note from the SciTech Institute that they've teamed up with Pipeline AZ and the Center for the Future of Arizona to bring our state a Department of Labor grant. And actually, Aaron, do you want to talk about that grant?
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, Steve, thanks. So in partnership with Pipeline, SciTech, really with SciTech Institute as the lead, secured a multi-year Department of Labor grant, really focused on rural areas, in particular, STEM outreach, STEM career exploration. So some components that include middle school career exploration, really working also with out-of-school time providers. So we're in the process of reviewing some applications from out-of-school time providers that are going to be operating and facilitating engagement activities for youth in STEM-oriented fields. And so certainly more to come. The grant was announced, last October, but as you can imagine, sometimes as it goes with federal grants, a little bit of time to get everything worked out and ramped up, but have initiated that grant. Would be happy to share more with those that are interested, but certainly focused in the rural communities. So really outside of Pima County, Maricopa County, in that those focused efforts.
And by the way, if any of you don't know Aaron, he's been doing workforce development and education for a long time. Aaron, where were you before? You were one of the school districts, weren't you, before when I first met you?
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. So prior to the to my work at the Center for the Future of Arizona, I was with the Pima County Joint Technical Education District, and then also with the Flowing Wells School District here in Tucson.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for all the great work you do. And PJ Carlin, did you want to introduce yourself? PJ, are you there? Okay, did I miss anybody else who's new to us today? Okay,
Steve, Mark,
Okay.
not new, but I have a brief announcement when you're.
okay. Go ahead.
Sure. As I discussed with you a week or so ago, we're in the editing cycle for the Tech Council's big public policy guide, state and federal public policy guide. This group has worked for years, either formally or informally, to help me review and freshen things up. This year, the submittal cycle for all the couple of dozen editors of sections is much earlier. And I am looking, I'm not going to workshop it as we did in an AZBSN session, I believe, once or twice before, but looking for people to comment. I have promised Commerce. Brett Garvey there is organizing a group, Keith Watson, Sandeep, and others that I will have a working session with. They have some particular interests and ideas. But over the next week and a half, if you have some interest in bandwidth, feel free to do a markup. The current version that I've posted that Steve can post to AZBSN does reflect last year's text. I've started some offline editing that's not ready for prime time, but a little closer to what I've said is the due date, maybe the Thursday before that Tuesday, I'll post an in-process revision so you can see how things are shaping up. Thank you.
Actually, I was going to talk to you, Mark, about whether it makes sense. I wasn't sure if you wanted it to be shared too much. So maybe we do a little work session for anybody who's interested outside of this regular meeting. For anybody who might be interested and might want to provide some input. Would that be okay
See if
with
the
you?
interest, or see if the interest arises. If people are interested in a interactive discussion and session, that's a good idea, Steve. I can't. Commerce wants to keep their session pretty limited to Tech Council and Commerce people, but if a parallel discussion and work session arises, be glad for that. Again, though, I have set the date that I hope to have all input for June 17th as I leave on vacation, June 25th, and I have to have it in before I leave for New York City and Ireland.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I'll talk to you about just setting a date.
Sure.
We'll just do it. Whoever shows up will show up.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So let's move on to our main presentation today. We're glad to welcome Jerry Keeley, who's with the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA. And I was fortunate. Jerry actually has presented to us in the past, but it was great that Pima Community College hosted a cybersecurity event last week, and I got to meet Jerry in person. So Jerry, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell people more about CISA, and you got lots of stuff to tell us. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you want to share your, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, perfect. And thank you for having me, Steve. And so Heather mentioned I had an opportunity to scare a bunch of her colleagues up in Talking Stick a few weeks back. Did you get a little scared there, Heather?
They didn't invite me to that event. We sent two other well-qualified people, but I heard about it, and Bob was very excited about working with you.
Oh, cool.
Hey, Jerry, if I could interrupt you for just a second, I want to go back. Heather, so you got kind of a recognition a couple of weeks ago. Would you like to just tell people about the acknowledgement you got?
Steve, to be honest, I still don't know what you're referring to.
You don't know what I'm referring to? Well, then I will have to tell you.
No. They keep me in the dark on these things.
So I have it here on this page. that the NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association Legislative and Policy Conference? Did you attended that?
Yeah, I attended that.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I thought you had some
Yeah.
kind of recognition, but maybe it was just that you attended
No,
that
I
conference.
just attend every year. I've gone for 4 years in a row, and we meet and it's the Rural Broadband Association, National Rural Broadband Association. Actually, Jerry's colleague, Jen Sissa, we call her Jen Sissa. Jerry, can you please tell us what her last name is so I'm not just calling her Jen Sissa?
Jennifer Easterly?
Yes.
Okay.
Jennifer presented at our policy conference. So we talk policy on one day and what's going on with Universal Service Fund, Affordable Connectivity Plan, and all that. And then the next day, we all head to the Hill and talk to our legislators and tell them what's going on in our neck of the world and why we need their help on Capitol Hill. So it's an annual conference we do every year.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So I'm sorry I confused you there, but I
It's
did
quite
want
all right.
to know that you were in Washington doing good stuff. So thank you. Okay, Jerry, back to you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so some of you may have heard of CISA and some have not. We're not a well-advertised broadcasted agency as of yet. It's very young. It's only been around about 5 years. And so Steve has given me the opportunity really to come and speak with you about what CISA does for you. You have access to a lot of resources available from the cybersecurity and physical security fronts. And he's given me an opportunity to present this. I did it last fall as well to the group, but we have some new members here. So let me see if I can get that to advance. So won't bore you too deeply in this, but basically we came out in 2018. So we are one of the youngest agencies in the Department of Homeland Security with the primary mission of protecting critical infrastructure. Now, critical infrastructure is wrapped up into these 16 critical infrastructure sectors. But frankly, almost anybody that you know of, any business that you know of, pretty much can be tied to one of these components in some way, either directly or via dotted line, which means that the services that we offer are available to all of you for absolutely free. People love that free. Actually, let's not say free. That sounds cheap. Let's prepaid, okay? Because you paid your taxes, you paid for us, and so we. I always encourage folks, put me to work, make me work for my money because you've already paid for it. Take advantage of these things where it makes sense for you. And so these are obviously the nation state actors that everybody's well aware of that are really going after our critical infrastructure. And you hear more and more in the news about that. And so it's making our job more and more difficult. And so we really have to be out there in front of our partners to help them improve their cybersecurity posture, especially those that are a little underfunded. They're target rich, resource poor. And so we really try to get out there and do that outreach. So one of the things that we do initially is communications. If you sign up for CISA alerts, I promise you we will spam you, okay? But the advantage of having these everybody will confirm that, but it's not really all the spam that is of the value. It's that 1 or 2 emails that you get a week that may be important to you, that might be directly impact you, an organization you're working with, or an organization you work for. So you kind of weed through the noise because we're trying to cover all the infrastructure across the United States and actually the world, and we have a lot of releases. But if you kind of weed through these, you will find nuggets in there that pertain to you that you could put into action. And so highly recommend that. Shields Up, basically, this was a program that this is one of the many programs we're involved with, but this was when Russia invaded Ukraine. It put a highlight, especially on critical infrastructure, because it's kind of well known that Russia is using this Ukraine invasion to test their resources, their tools, their technology, and their capabilities so that they can probably pivot to use those against us here in the United States. So we have to pay attention to that. The Kev catalog. So this is really more for the nerdy types or for you to get over to your nerdy types. So based on some of those alerts that we give, we also identify all the vulnerabilities that are out there. And our Kev catalog is a huge centralized repository of all the known exploited vulnerabilities. And where this comes in handy is if you see something on one of the alerts, you can go over here and find out not only what the vulnerability is, but how to patch and remediate it. But it's also good if you're deploying a new piece of equipment or a new software, something with firmware, you can go to this Kev catalog and you can look for it, because vendors are notorious for deploying stuff with a known solid image, which might be dated. It may be old. It's not patched. They want it, they want to deploy something that is known good so they don't have to work on it. And sometimes they haven't patched it appropriately. So when you do bring in a piece of new equipment or software, you want to come to the Kev catalog and search for that to make sure that it's up to date, make sure that you are protected with your equipment and your updates. So that's where that becomes kind of handy. So free cyber security services and tools, all right? So focusing on anything I talk about today, you will never get billed for. You can take advantage of these whenever you want, as often as you want. And we don't even have a process for billing people, so you'll never, ever see a bill. And I'd like to bring that up kind of clearly because we have had vendors and consultants out there across the US trying to sell CISA services. They're going and saying, okay, you can do these risk assessments, you can do all these different things, and they try to route the customer through themselves to offer our free services. So we're doing services for free, but they're taking money off the top, okay? So whenever you see the CISA logo and you see a presentation, please don't pay for it because you don't need to. The bad practices page. So this really pertains to more advanced entities, actually. So I think we all can find ourselves guilty of getting too far down the road and forgetting the basics. And in cybersecurity, the basics are still being leveraged constantly. And so we might be following this shiny object and this new tool, this new resource, this new vendor, whatever. And sometimes we forget to revert back and do the basics. So I like to bring people back and say, you know what, go to the bad practices page and make sure that you haven't bypassed or forgotten about the basics. Because it's all too many times I've done notifications to victims, and it's because they're very advanced in their security posture, but they forgot to do something that was simple, something that was basic. And so you really want to remember that the basics matter because those are the easy exploits to you. So don't make sure your cyber teams or your IT teams don't forget to remember some of the basic stuff. Ransomware. So ransomware is a big deal. If you're going to get hit by something, it's going to be ransomware, more than likely. This document here, we have a whole stop ransomware page, lots of resources, but I'd like to highlight this one because this is a PDF that you can download. And it's good in that it has a good way of describing what ransomware really is. Some people, we hear about it on the news, we know the term, we kind of have an idea about what it might be. This is a good place to kind of look at some good descriptions of what ransomware is, especially if you're trying to speak to executive leadership or getting people that aren't real familiar with what it truly is. And then it also has two other things that are great. It first of all has a whole section on how to avoid being hit by ransomware. And I have another tool I can show you that helps with that as well, which is obviously very important. And then if you have been hit with ransomware, it has some good tools and resources on what do you do? And those are things that can go into your incident response playbook, or you can refer to if you find out you've just suddenly been hit by ransomware. Not gonna. So we do have a section that talks about generative AI for the election cycle, but it's not just for elections. There are a lot of things that AI is bringing into the workplace and bringing into our world that we have to pay attention to. So don't forget it. I mean, most people are familiar with AI a little bit. So there's some good reads to give you a little more information if you're not real familiar with AI. At some point, I might come and do a presentation with you guys, if Steve will let me, that I basically can take any one of your LinkedIn profiles and a YouTube video from any one of you. I can clone your voice and make you say anything I want. I can make pictures of you in jail or out hunting or whatever I want to do. And I can also do news articles or events and basically fake that maybe you were involved in some kind of scam or something like that. And it will take everything and relate it to you realistically. And it's complete AI. I don't know how to do this stuff, but I actually have a tool that I can show you how easy it is to do, and more importantly, how fast it is to do. And that's where AI has really become a force multiplier in the cyber front that we have to pay attention to. We want to ignore it, but we really shouldn't. It needs to be part of our life. We need to embrace it, but we also need to understand its challenges.
Hey, Jerry, can we go back to ransomware for just 1 second? Many folks probably know, but the education community has become a prime target for ransomware.
Absolutely. And again, that kind of goes back to the target rich, resource poor. These bad actors know who has the resources and who is really doing a good job defending and who is not. And education facilities happen to be one of those great targets for them because you have very important, valuable information about students and about families, and it carries a great deal of value. And yet you don't have the resources to protect and defend in the education space. And so that is one that we certainly try to target from a protective standpoint, but the bad guys know this and they're trying to target them as well. Kind of the two main things that are getting hit out there with ransomware is education and medical facilities, hospitals. And because again, a lot of valuable information, a lot of valuable tools, and they know that they can leverage those against you. So it's a very strong point to realize that you are being watched. They are coming after education facilities specifically.
This is Mark. There was a very recent municipal library shutdown for over a week for all facilities. I think they're just climbing back now. A couple of dozen facilities in a, I think, Midwest municipal library system shut down over ransomware hard, and then went back to manual processes while they continue to crawl back on their computing environments.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Mark. And yeah, and going back to manual processes, you mentioned that a lot of entities can't. They've become so reliant on technology, and that's why ransomware has been so successful, is they don't have the option. If they don't have good backups, they don't have the option but to pay the ransomware, which we certainly don't recommend. We want to have good backups and have the ability to defend it, because some entities simply can't go to manual processes. I was doing a hospital event, and the initial statement was, yeah, we'll just go to manual charting and stuff. And then the question came up on this tabletop. It's like, well, do your people know how to go to manual charting? And unfortunately, a lot of the younger generation folks have never been trained on manual charting in a hospital. So their result, I think, was very clever. Is they said they'd bring back retirees and people that were familiar with the old school process to help train the younger folks on how to do some of this, because some of our younger generations have not been exposed to the manual process that you speak of. So that's another thing. Even schools, think about it. How reliant are schools right now on technology? Very, very much so. And so for them to be able to try to go back to, there are no such thing as books anymore. Everything is online. So if they get hit with stuff, as you can well imagine, there's not necessarily a manual process to revert back to. So bear that in mind as well. Those are great points. Thank you, folks.
And Jerry, I think you're also working with Homeland Security, but Homeland Security, I believe it's the National Guard, in particular, are collaborating with the Department of Education to provide cybersecurity assistance to schools. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now or later. Or...
Yeah, so yes, I am a component of Department of Homeland Security, but the National Guard is actually Department of Defense. And they, in the state of Arizona, they have a cyber command run by Lieutenant Colonel King, and now Eric Ramirez, Captain Ramirez, has joined us. And yes, they have a mission. They're working with elections entities, because that's obviously very, very high priority. And schools, they will come in and they will do external, internal pen testing. I'm working with them on creating some tabletop exercises, as well as there is an umbrella agreement with the with Cyber Command that if a school entity does get hit, they have an incident response team that will come in and help you get out of that, or help you at least research it and help you recover. And so, yeah, that is a free resource that is available to all the schools. It really kind of focused on governments and schools. So if you're part of a government or school, you have access to that resource as well. The key thing to note, though, is if you're not a school district, you do need to enter into an IGA with them, and you want to do that before you have a bad day, because scrambling to get an IGA done and through your board or whatever that is last minute after you've been hit is kind of very hard to do. So if you are a government entity, enter into that agreement with them early, and then go ahead and take advantage of their pen test and their internal pen testing resources. They're really good. They're very good quality, and they really will help you reduce your risk and your vulnerabilities. So thanks for bringing that up as well, Steve.
Yeah, sure, Jerry. So I guess I just want to, we have several people who were related to school districts or work with school districts, and it would be great to help spread the word. Theoretically, they are getting this information, but that doesn't mean that they're actually getting the information. So it would be good to help share that information.
Yeah, and so anybody here that wants more information about it, wants to have a further on discussion, or wants to be in touch with the National Guard to have them come and tell you what they do and what they can do for you, just reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with the right people for sure.
Actually, Leslie King has actually presented to this group.
Oh, yes, okay. Yep. And now Eric Ramirez is going to be taking over for him in the fall. So you'll want to know that name as well, Captain Eric Ramirez.
Okay.
Because Lieutenant Colonel King is being deployed in November, I believe. And so Eric will be taking over for him. So
Okay.
just decide to bear that in mind.
Thanks for letting me know that.
So the team will still exist, just different people. And again, I can put you in touch with anybody you'd like to. So now I'm going to go over, I'm not going to get real deep into these. These are all the services that we offer. It's better to do those one-on-ones with the IT team, the cyber team, or leadership within your organization to really drill into what these things are. So I won't try to go through, I'll highlight some of them, but we won't go in detail. These are really more better with one-on-one because every entity has different needs, different requirements, and a different posture, and can take advantage of things at different levels because we have varying levels of cyber maturity that we do. So first of all, one of our big things is an assessment. You can't protect something, or you can't mitigate risks unless you know you have them. And so these assessments are very, very valuable. What you can do them on your own, which I'll explain in a moment, or you can have me come in and I will sit with your team. I can do it remotely or physically. And I do a cyber resilience review or any one of these assessments really. So the cyber resilience review is for very mature organizations. And then external dependencies, that's if you use a lot of third parties, it's good for you to understand. That's mostly with finance types and legal types to make sure your documentation is up to snuff and make sure you've covered your entity's interests when you're working with third parties. The CIS cyber infrastructure review is the most common one that I do. It takes about 2 hours, maybe 3, depending if you have a larger group. And it's based on NIST standards. It covers 5 of the NIST domains. And we just kind of go through. It feels like an audit, but it's not. It's just a tabletop conversation where I ask questions, you answer them, and then we come up with these graphs that show where you're measuring off on your posture, so you can focus your time. And I'll show you some of those graphs here in a moment. And then cyber resilience essentials and protective goals. Those are for entities that are smaller, don't have a lot of things in place, or kind of want to just get started. And they're quicker to go through. And just give you a snapshot on where to start. Incident management review. This is very handy because if you have an incident response playbook within your organization, I hear a lot of, yeah, I had one, but we did it back in 2009. Well, whatever was happening in 2009 is not happening again anymore. So having it reviewed on a regular basis is very helpful. We can come in and review that, help you and give you a scorecard on some of those areas, which I'll show you here in a moment. Or if you don't have an incident response book, it will help you build one too. Then ransomware readiness. So I'd mentioned that the PDF is good to have, but we also will do an assessment specifically focused on your organization, your technology, your policies, on your readiness for a ransomware event. So that's very handy to kind of go through that and bring that awareness to the folks on what to pay attention to and what to fix. You can always go to the CISA.gov Cyber Resource Hub, and all the things that I'm talking about are in there. They'll have some better descriptions of that. Another thing that is like #1 step, cyber hygiene, vulnerability scanning. Okay, so bad actors are scanning your external facing IP addresses and networks constantly. All right, they're already doing that. This you sign up for. It's quick, it's easy, it's free, and it's 3 documents I can send you. You fill them out and you send those in, and inside of a week we'll start scanning your external facing IP addresses and notifying you of all the vulnerabilities. Do it every single week. Every Monday morning you get a PDF that shows all the vulnerabilities, including the new ones, since you know the cyber criminals creating new vulnerabilities every day. And so we scan it every week and give you a report on that so that you can go in and patch those things and update those. it's great because many of us don't just sit there looking for vulnerabilities or study all these things or can get on that. This basically brings awareness to these, and they rate them really nicely. It's a nice dashboard that shows you critical, high, medium, low, and informational. It ages them from the day you start. So if you have like one that's on a legacy application or something that you simply cannot remediate, you go for a period of time. At some point, you're going to put your foot down and say, "Hey, we need to fix this. We need we need a new version of this," or whatever that looks like. So everybody should be doing this because right now you are being scanned by all the bad actors and all these government agencies. So let us scan and tell you what's weak and what's vulnerable so that you can get it fixed. Okay. Web application, if you have websites out there, we do the same thing. We'll scan your websites every week and let you know vulnerabilities or exposures and things like that. That's come in real handy. And then remote vulnerability assessment. So when you feel you've got good scanning going, you've got a decent security posture, you've done some assessments with us, then we can have this remote vulnerability assessment. And like Stephen mentioned, if you're a school or a government agency, then I do recommend the National Guard one because it is more inclusive and more involved. But CISA does offer those as well for free. It's a team out of DC that will do the remote testing of you in 1 week. And then the following week, they'll actually drop a box in your environment that allows them to pen test you from the inside, just like the National Guard does, and let you know what it looks like if you had a bad actor get inside your networks, and what to patch and what's vulnerable inside those networks. So great resource. But again, if you're government, schools, you use Lieutenant Colonel King's resources. So now on the
So
right
Jerry,
hand,
does this also apply to nonprofit organizations?
it does. It absolutely does. Like I said, critical infrastructure can be tied to almost anybody. And so, as you all probably know, any kind of cyber attack against anything in our environment, in our world, can be an attack against us. There are ripple effects that always happen based on one attack. So, I always like to say, attack against one of us is an attack against all of us. So I take every entity out there as critical infrastructure in the way I view it. Now when we talk about the CISA and the remote vulnerability, they prioritize those with things based on if they are critical infrastructure, like if they're critical manufacturing, if they're water, wastewater, if they're electrical utility, if they're a school district, if they're elections office, they get prioritized, obviously, based on the impact in the environment. I don't prioritize them that way. I basically prioritize them based on my schedule. When can I get to it? And have a fair, flexible schedule. So I can do these things with you. So some other resources. So remember, I said on these assessments, you can do them yourself. There is a free tool called the Cybersecurity Evaluation Tool, the CSET. Simply go to CISA.gov and type in CSET, and you can download this tool that not only has all the assessments we do, but it has a ton of other ones, industry-related assessments, and they're just really good evaluations that you can do all on your own. Now, I've had several customers say I'd rather have them guided with somebody that works in the industry and knows how to do these, at least for the first one, and then they'll follow up and they'll do them on their own later, which has been a good technique people have used. Working with Tucson Electric Power is one of my people I'm working with, and their cyber supervisor went and tried to do the CIS assessment, and he said that is just too involved, so he's going to have me come in and do it for them, and then they'll do all their follow-ups once they learn how to do them. But you're welcome to do any of these. I encourage you to have any of your IT or cyber people download the tool, look at it, look at the assessments, understand which ones make sense, and attempt them if you'd like. And then you can go through them and say, okay, no, this would be one to have Jerry come in and help us with, and I'll be there for you. So some of like the ransomware readiness assessment and the incident management review are built right in there. So you can go and do the assessment yourself. You don't need me. You guys can do them yourself and kind of walk through that at your leisure. That's the nice thing about doing them yourselves is you can spend an hour and do part of it and then come back to it. Next week you do another part of it. You can pace yourself through the tool. Whereas if I come on site, we're going to try to bang it all out in one shot. So that's the big difference. Malware analysis. So if you do find yourself with malware and you want a software analysis of that, you go to our website, upload the malware, and they will give you it'll run through a software analysis piece, and it will let you know what it was, who it was, what they were attempting to do, all that stuff. So that's a handy tool to have. And then we also do tabletops, and I listed a couple here. And there's one that I'm actually not really listing, but is real. Is I will create tabletop exercises for you and facilitate them for your entity. Tabletops are really important. They're usually the last ditch effort. People don't like to consider them, but if you have a plan and you have a team that you don't practice it, in the event of an event, that's not the time to practice. That time is to practice in a controlled environment, so everybody knows who does what, when, and where, and why. And that's what the tabletops are really good for. We can do large scale ones through our national planning team. We have a regional planning team out of Oakland that will come in and do those for you, or you have me locally that will take care of those as well. I can do them remotely or on site once again. And then you also can just go to the CISA website and download a template and do one yourself. There's tons of them out there. And you can build your own one. And entities like to do that initially just to get a feel for what's a tabletop look like, who gets involved, and walk through them. And then but somebody still has to facilitate. I offer the advantage where I will come in and I will do all the injects, I will do all the tabletop, and I will facilitate it so everybody in your entity can play. So that's the advantage that we have there. Again, if you don't test it, running around with your hair on fire is not an incident response. Having a response plan and having it tested is very, very valuable. And then information sharing and analysis. So there's an ISAC for pretty much everything out there. So we have the EI ISAC, which is the elections infrastructure. There's a hospital ISAC. There's an electrical ISAC. So there usually is an information sharing and analysis center and ISAC that you can sign up for that would be related to your industry. Those are very valuable and free, and it's a subcomponent. CISA funds the MS ISAC, so that's the multi-state ISAC. It's funded by CISA, so they're a partner of ours, and they offer information sharing, which is again, if somebody gets something and alerts, then they can alert everybody at the same time, and that's very helpful. So we can try to keep in front of some of these bad actors. A couple websites to highlight. Yep, somebody saying something? No, okay. So we have Stop Think Connect, which is an educational resource. Stop Ransomware, all things ransomware is a good site to go to. Cyber Protective Visit, that's what I mentioned. You call me in and I can kind of go through these things in greater detail with your organization. We can come up with a cyber plan to help bring some of this stuff online and talk about some of these things. We also have a physical protective visit. So we have two physical security advisors here in Arizona that will actually come and do a walkthrough. I went through Cap Water with them earlier this week, and next week we're going to go up to a pumping station. So kind of do the physical where we look at if you've got if you have ramming issues, or you have you want to do a active shooter presentation in your site, all of that stuff, and then they walk through and look at your cameras, camera locations, blind spots, door access, and all those other things. So certainly take advantage of that. I can put you in touch with a physical advisor. And then CISA.gov. My warning on this one is CISA.gov is it's like YouTube for cat videos. Once you go on, it's just got all kinds of stuff that you can scroll and you look up and you're like, oh geez, I just wasted 2 hours. CISA.gov's like that. It's a huge catalog of resources and a lot of great resources, but it will squirrel you. So if you go in without an intent, you're going to get lost. And so I recommend using CISA.gov when you come up with something. Say, hey, I want to know how to do this. I want to research this. I want to address this problem. Go to CISA.gov and use the search engine. Because if you just simply go there to see what it's all about, you may find yourself lost. I'm sure some people on here that's ever been to our website will probably affirm that that's a challenge. So moving on here, assessments. So kind of, the high level, you can't protect what you don't know needs protecting. You can't fix if you don't know what's wrong, right? So these assessments are very valuable to everyone. And I also like to highlight, we are a government agency. And so if you're private sector, you're like, oh, I don't want the government getting my information, because we're public, we're FOIA-able, if that's what you're going to word. But we do put your data under a law called PCII, which protects your data against FOIA requests. Can't disclose anything publicly, and your data cannot even be used in civil litigations or regulatory processes. We are not regulatory. We don't report to anybody. So people get concerns like, well, if you got all this information, do you have to report that to our insurance company? No, I don't. And I won't. My job is to help you become more secure. And if I share your information out, you're not going to trust me anymore. And your cyber information is very, very important, because if that gets in the hands of the wrong people, game over. And so we collect this information and we do hold it very close hold. I don't even share it. If I get information about an entity, I'm not even at liberty to share it with another CISA employee unless you instruct me to. So it's yours and yours alone. And so just be aware of that. So then these are just some of the different reviews. This is the big one I talked about. Comes out with a scorecard. There's 11 of the NIST domains that's covered in that one. That's a big one. That's a full day engagement. 300 and some odd questions. So it takes some time. But here's the output. So you basically get a report card. And what's nice about these assessments is they tell you where you need to focus your time, resources, and money. If you've got a green bar going all the way across that report, don't spend any time there. It means you're doing good as it pertains to NIST standards or best practices. But if you see red all the way across, that might be something you should be taking a look at. Spend your time working in the red and yellow areas and ignore the green areas. So it helps you focus your resources and time, especially if you don't necessarily know where you really need to begin. And then the external dependency thing, it's the same thing. I already covered that. They come up with a scorecard, and you can use this information to bring back to your finance or your legal department and make sure that these things are held in your boilerplate on your T's and C's to make sure that your best interest is covered. So the CIS is the one I do most commonly. I'll give you here's the kind of the output of that, where it kind of has, these are the 5 domains we cover, and then there's lots of subdomains. So you get all these different subgraphs that show, again, where to spend your time. So you look at this and say, okay, incident response is my lowest area. Maybe I should spend a little time on incident response. But again, it's up to you as an entity to decide what's important to you. And then it does a comparison based on what other like entities are doing in these areas. Then incident management reviews, I mentioned that, and that's good for you to do yourself, but I can certainly help with it. Same thing, comes out with a scorecard. So now you can address the red markings. Could be a policy, could be a procedure, could be staffing, could be a communication plan, could be anything. Address the red stuff and the yellow stuff, and that will help bolster your incident management plan or response plan. And then the CRR, again, these are this is for entry-level folks. So if you just want to just get a quickie snapshot on where your security might sit, as you can see, it's very simple. It's a yes, no, maybe kind of scenario, question and answer, and then you can kind of look at the areas that you want to focus on, or the areas that you need to do some research on. And so it's good for entry level, doing a self-assessment, just kind of see where you're at. Vulnerability scanning. So this is the one I harped on earlier. Let's have us come and do the vulnerability. So just to highlight this, now this is a very old slide, but it said we had over 7,100 customers nationwide. We've really been on an effort banging that drum to get people involved. So we have a lot more than that, but we find vulnerabilities all the time. And I will say that this lies. It says most enrollees see improvements in the first 90 days. I can tell you, I've worked with several entities, including when I worked for Pinal County as the CISO. You actually see improvements within the first week. When you first get that report, it's a little scary saying, oh, geez, I didn't know I had all this stuff. But your team's working on it right away. Okay, so, and then the 40% reduction in exposure, again, it's much higher than that. Because if you have exposures out there, you know that the bad actors are trying to exploit them right now as we speak. So if you get those and you button those up, you really improve your posture day one. Okay. And then the web application scanning, same thing. It's a report card you get, and you can go and fix any of the bugs or vulnerabilities or weaknesses you have in your web environment. The ISAC and all that. Won't get too deep into the information sharing center, but please reach out to your ISACs and get involved with them. Share information out, get information in. That's really important across our country. And then we also offer some free training. You can go to Fed VTE, which is a virtual training platform. As you can see, there's several different high-level trainings that you can attend. Most of them are pretty short, but they're free. So take a look at those instead of paying for some of the resources. See if there's something that is applicable for free. And if you're a .gov, create a login and you get an access to a whole nother much deeper, broader library if you have a .gov email address. But if you don't, this is the free, publicly available stuff. The CSET tool I've already mentioned, download that, have your cyber or IT teams download that. Or if you have a risk manager, that's a good place to look at to do all these assessments and see there, because there's so many more that are available to you that you can do. And then this is where you can upload malware to us and they'll do an evaluation for you. Then this is the cyber events. And if you are a school or a government entity or a city of any form, Ryan Murray, who was at our event last week, is the guy that kind of oversees that at the state of Arizona. All these tools are available for you for free. And we also have resources to help you implement and roll these things out. So please take advantage of that. They are great tools and they're free. So take advantage of it. Especially you schools out there, please make sure that you're working with Ryan on that. Okay, so there's my contact information. Please screenshot it or whatever you would like to do to make sure you can reach out to me. And now, I know I talked very quickly as a quick overview. Any questions out there, folks?
Jerry, can you stop sharing now, please?
Yep. No questions? Did I cover everything good?
Well, Jerry, I just want to say a couple of things. I've been getting notices from CISA for years, and but I never really understood what else. I always knew that they were focused on critical infrastructure, but really had no idea about the kinds of resources that you just went over today. And I have talked with Jerry and Ryan Murray and a number of others about the cybersecurity issue and the vulnerability of all these people that we're connecting, giving free internet and free devices and so forth. And there's a lot of vulnerability out there. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Oh, and another thing I don't have on my presentation that I would like to share out is I do offer security awareness trainings to companies and to people. I'm going to be doing an elder care center down in Green Valley in a couple weeks, and I'm going to be talking to their residents who are a target. Elderly people in technology is a major target, as well as I'm going to be talking with their staff. So again, if you want somebody to come in and do a security awareness training for your staff or for customers or anybody, general public, let me know. I'm happy to do so. Come and kind of scare people straight. Let's see. Oh, somebody asked. So I'll put my email address in here. And then Andrew asked about doing the presentation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email to Steve with the basically it's the slide that shows our services. And it's a Word document actually, and it kind of has some links over to the CISA website. I will share that off to you so that to Steve, and he can share it to the membership at large, and so that way you guys, and it will have my contact information as well. But that way you can kind of see high level what I covered today, and maybe bring that to your organization and say, here's some things we should be looking at. Then contact me and let me come in and do a sales pitch, if you will. And I'm putting my email into the chat right now.
Okay. So Andy, I think he addressed your question in the chat, but you want to just talk briefly about what you were thinking?
Well, my thoughts is that getting this information out to the school, there's so much over changing of the guard when you have new school years arrive, and our schools have a tendency of hiring from each other and what have you. So I think I'd like to try to help get this out to some of our, especially our rural counties. Most of them, I'm sure, have seen this, but I think knowing the school superintendents are in that mix, and I think would be additionally helpful in cases like Arizona, of course, we have elections for our school superintendents, and some of them are leaving. In particular, I think Tim Carter's one of the best we've ever had, and he's finally getting a chance to go do some fishing here come January. So I'm trying to maintain that continuity for what they have and what they don't. And the updates that Jerry was providing are some things that I think are new. So anyway, my thought was, Alana, thank you for sending me your email. So my thought is to kind of take what Jerry is presenting and get it to our county managers and school superintendents, just so that they have it, and put Jerry's invitation out there for them. Let them come in and talk to these folks.
Put me to work, please.
Yeah. You're asking the wrong guy, Jerry. you may get to retire after I'm done with you, but you'll be tired.
That sounds like I'm asking the right guy. This outreach is very important because we don't have a means of advertising what we do.
Yeah, well, I think this team you've got on here is a great resource, so you'll get a lot of folks to spread that word. So anyway, that was my thought, Steve. Yeah.
Have you
One of the
guys
challenge. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
So we got a program that just kicked off a couple weeks ago called Secure Our World, and it's obviously a mission that Jenny Shirley put out there. We got a public service announcement. If you go to our website, it's a cartoony thing that you can share to your customers and to coworkers and stuff. It's annoying, I'll admit that up front, but it really does cover the key things: multi-factor, secure passwords, things like that, and the 4 biggies. And it's sticky. It's a good for all audiences because everybody can kind of relate to it. And like I said, it's a little annoying in the jingle side, but it is good. So please go to the CIS website and you will see that Secure Our World public service cartoon, and share it widely, because it is it does have some good talking points, especially for people that don't really think along the lines of cybersecurity.
Well, Jerry, when you talk about the resources for our schools being very, very target rich, I think this is something that they need to regularly continue to bring to their boards and their local districts. So anyway, so I'll just take what you send me and I'll share it. You can make them cartoons or anything you want, but I think that they need to see this more often. Sometimes things elevate as soon as the school gets hit. Everybody gets worried. It's a little late then. So,
yeah.
And one of the big challenges that we've run into with school districts, particularly the small and rural school districts, is that their IT director is also the football coach and the science teacher and all kinds of other things. And so it's a real challenge to be able to help. Even the larger districts have their own challenges, but the smaller school districts have a big challenge. I don't know, Jerry, if you want to speak to that at all. I'm sure you've run into that.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things I run into mostly, I mean, the large school districts have the challenge of they sometimes don't take cyber very important. I mean, it's obviously the instructional side of the house is where their main focus is. But if you just look back, Mesa schools got hit really hard. Tucson Unified School District got hit really hard. So even the big schools aren't necessarily taking that to heart. But one of the bigger concerns would be our rural school districts, the small ones who, the IT director was a math teacher who built a computer back in 1976, right? And so they really don't have the resources, not only just from the, so all these tools that I mentioned, they're all good and nice, but if you don't have anybody that has the ability to manage them or monitor them, they're kind of a waste of time. And that's one of the struggles that we have, is the resources on the school side. So that's the problem we've been trying to address, is getting extra resources from the state level to help support these entities that just don't have the staffing to not only deploy the tool, but to keep the tool up to date, or to manage the tool, or do something about it. So is that what you were talking about, Steve?
Yes, absolutely. So Dario, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Great presentation. My question was in terms of linking up with the research groups at universities in cybersecurity, both in software and hardware. Do you have any channel of open of communication, or how can we make sure that we're connected?
Yeah, so I've worked with U of A a little bit, ASU quite a bit. but really not worked with many of the other universities. And then I've worked with a couple community colleges, Central Arizona Community College and Pima Community College, work closely with them. But yeah, same thing is, this is an outreach program I have. And so if you have any contacts or somebody you can put me in touch with, we can talk about what we offer and help augment whatever tools and resources they have. Now, universities have some really good cyber programs and some good cyber tools and things like that. And they're generally pretty good. But I will tell you, one of my jobs is to do victim outreach. When we identify a device that's being actively exploited with ransomware, I contact these agencies. And it's nice if I have a contact I can call directly. Otherwise, I sound like a scammer saying, hey, there's something bad going on. And if they're good at their security, they will hang up on me, unfortunately. But even as good as ASU and U of A are, and as large as they are here in the state, I've had to make victim calls to all of them. One of them was kind of interesting. There was a device in their network that was beaconing out to a ransomware server. And when I contacted them, they didn't have any idea about this device. They found out later that it was a teacher that had them put that server up for a class environment. And the teacher had been gone for 3 years. So this device was sitting out there talking to the internet, and they had no idea that was happening. And through my phone call, they were able to identify the device, and it was just sitting out there running. And as you guys had mentioned, that there's turnover in these areas, and that's a great example of that, where you had an instructor in your school environment that wanted to do something for the purpose of the class, and then they leave, they turn over, and they forget that device is sitting out there running, and then the IT or the cyber team doesn't even know it exists. Again, another valuable use of either having us do our scanning of the network, or even better yet, having us do the cyber hygiene scanning so that somebody can look and see that you got that Windows 8 box sitting there talking to the internet, when you need to get that off of there. So
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jerry.
And Mary Lisa, we will be sharing, and actually his contact information was in the email I sent announcing this meeting, but it will also be in my follow-up email. So Jerry, well, actually, Dario, maybe this is in relation to your question, but one of the things that I've observed, and I actually created a cybersecurity alliance many years ago, back in the 80s. And one of the things that I observed is that we have a lot of cybersecurity organizations, but many of them are focused on enterprise organizations, IT professionals, cybersecurity professionals, not the small business community, now, of course, we have even more users out there who never even owned a computer, and yet they're vulnerable and they create vulnerability for a lot of other people. And so that is really, I think, is a big challenge, is while these research groups, and a lot of them are focused on training cybersecurity professionals, all those things that are important and necessary, but sometimes we tend to forget that there's a whole world of other people out there who don't understand cybersecurity, don't know about resources, don't know where to go to get help. Often they can't afford to contract with folks to manage their networks. And so we have a lot of vulnerability out there that we don't have a good strategy for.
That's a good point, Steve. And we're dealing with the AI threat, as you know, both as a threat and also as a defense mechanism. And I was very impressed. A couple of months ago, I had to participate in a presentation, one of our faculty with a company that was losing hundreds of millions of dollars with scams that were automatically implemented using AI and some bots. And I could not believe that the company could lose so much money through that kind of process. So now we are generating capability. But to your point, we have a huge university that of course is a client, and also it's a producer of technology and solutions. And sometimes not necessarily we have all our capabilities being used to defend the network that we use every day. So I really like that example that Jerry gave, because once we learn about that, perhaps we can make sure that our capabilities in the lab migrate to all the users, all the way to the community and also the small companies.
Yeah. Thanks, Dario. Any other questions or comments? Jerry, great job, great presentation. And, for a lot of people, as you started out when your presentation, a lot of people have no idea what CISA is, never heard of it. and so forth. And so to be able to learn a little more about CISA and all the resources, and those people, most people like myself who knew about CISA really were thinking more about the critical infrastructure focus of CISA and not all the other kinds of resources that you provide. So I think it's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Any
Again,
other
thank you.
questions or comments for Jerry? Jerry, you have anything else before we're about out of time here?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attendance. And please share the word and invite me in. Invite me into your organizations and let me help you. Put me to work, please.
And we will share his resources. Are there any other announcements anybody has before we end for today? Going once, going twice. If not, I do believe that we are done.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks again, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet. Thanks,
Thank you,
Andy.
Steve.
Thanks for
Steve
joining
putting
us,
some-
Andy. Definitely want
Thanks,
to
Steve.
coordinate with you any way we can. Oh, and Vivian, I'm sorry I didn't introduce you. I was looking for you. I know you were there and then not. Whoops. And I think oh, there you are. And so I was going to introduce you, and then I couldn't find you.
No, that's okay. I know I was like in the bottom of the list.
Well, we'll do that again when you hopefully join us again.
Sounds great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Vivian.
See you, Mark.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hey,
Kurt Busch, there you are. Hi, bud.
Did we lose Andy? Oh, I'm
No,
gonna try to
you're
catch
still
you.
here.
Not
Oh, there
yet.
you are.
I'm
So,
gonna stop recording.